Hello there, my name is Beatrice Yakubu. I am the founder of Beatrice Yakubu Media. I'm a social media marketer and I help businesses expose their business to the online world through the power of social media. And what I love to do, I love to watch the NYN Show. And what do I get from there? A lot of inspiration, a lot of resilience, and just watching people share their stories and share their journey. That empowers me as well, and I'm recommending it to you so that you can get all these inspirations for yourself to promote yourself, your business, and your daily life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the NYN Show. I have with me here in the studio a very special lady. I'm going to ask her to introduce herself to you. So Phil, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you?
My name is Phyllis Dennis. I'm a mum of two. I work in immigration, and I'm also a Christian. I think that's all I can say about myself for today.
Okay. But are you married? Are you single?
Yes, I am married. Yes, I'm married. I'm not single, I'm married, yes.
That question is very important, just in case somebody is watching you and they're thinking, is she or is she not? So
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that for us.
I'm very married.
By the way, Phyllis and I go back a long way. We did the masters together, and I'm very, very proud of her because the book I've got in my hand has been written by her. So I particularly wanted to chat to her about this book, the story behind it. It says the Unveiling Light, a personal experience of learning to overcome the long-term effects of COVID-19. So Phil, then, tell us the background of this book. Why? What motivated you to write this?
I wanted to communicate my experience, particularly with my husband, because he had a severe COVID attack last year in the early parts of the COVID pandemic around March 2020. And I felt the need to communicate my experience through the recovery stage because there were a lot of challenges, but I did persevere to try and find solutions. And through that, I believe that I can also inspire others. So I decided to document it in a book.
That's excellent, and thank you for giving me a copy, because as I've been flipping through it, especially time in isolation, the experience, and the long COVID, I'll work backwards. Let's talk about the long COVID. Why have you described it as long COVID, and what's the difference between the long and short COVID?
Okay, so first and foremost, I'm no medical expert, so I just need to make that very clear. Mm-hmm. But through the recovery process, my husband had a very severe COVID attack, like I said before. He was put in coma, and it was more of a waiting game as to whether he was going to make it. So by God's grace, he made it and he came home. And I thought that, okay, we can put all that behind us and continue as normal. But through the process, I realized that there were a lot of things that were not right. And I began to observe things a bit more carefully. And that is when I realized that there was something as a long COVID. At the time, we didn't know it was long COVID, but I could see that, there's a problem with your voice. I could see that I'm talking to you. Are you not listening? Or are you not focusing? Or, why are you confused? There were a lot of little things that I felt like that wasn't the same man before COVID. And through that, I decided to document that. Obviously, a couple of months later, the long COVID was identified through, medical experts and their research. So I believe that the long COVID, in answering your question, the long COVID will be the symptoms that one is suffering after recovery, but you're still struggling with certain things that perhaps may not have been the case before.
Thank you. So in listening to you, he went to hospital, he was discharged, and he came home, and you thought, this is it, we're going to move our lives forward. And then you realized that things weren't connected. For example, you were talking to him, but he didn't seem to be listening or hearing you and all of that. How did that make you feel at that point?
Initially, like I said, women, we tend to want a bit of attention. So initially, I was like, why don't you understand what I'm trying to say? But it took me a while, and by the time I got to understand that even going through coma and, being coming back out of coma is quite a very traumatic experience. Mm-hmm. So through a lot of research and trying to talk to a few people, like nurses that I knew, helped me to understand it wasn't his fault. So at one point, I was getting frustrated and angry, but at some point, I had to relax and accept what was happening and find a way to dealing with the problem.
Excellent. So then, time in isolation, what was it like?
Oh, that's a memory
By the way, that's chapter 1 of the book.
That's a memory that doesn't matter how hard I try, it's always there. I relive it every time I'm talking about it. But time in isolation was before he went into hospital. Time in isolation was when he was actually isolating from the family as well as obviously the public, and that he was more or less spending the whole day in a room and I was looking after him. That was very, very difficult. I would say it was quite traumatic to see him going through the pain that he was going through and the weakness that I could see, but also I was quite helpless in helping him. A lot of people experienced calling the 111 for advice and still, weren't getting through, or if you managed to get through, they'll keep on saying, "Oh, continue to isolate." So time in isolation was quite a traumatic experience for him, but I also believe that it was quite a traumatic experience for me because I could see a loved one suffering and there wasn't anything I could do. And he went into isolation for a good 14 days.
Wow.
And through the process, the paramedics wouldn't come, the ambulances wouldn't come. And this was not someone who was getting better. His situation was worsening by the day. And just throughout the walls, I was just listening. Can I even hear him breathing again, because I didn't know what else to do. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that it doesn't matter how far it might have been in the past, you always relive it when you talk about it. Yeah,
and I do empathize with you because I know so many people have lost loved ones to COVID, and so for you to actually hear him in the other room, you couldn't physically be there with him because he had to isolate, and then you were thinking, is he going to make it? What's going to happen? I mean,
can I just say that I could go and attend to him, obviously water, food, and make sure he was all right. But I couldn't stay in the room throughout the entire day because I was also working at the same time. And in the night, I'm kind of like listening through the walls to see, okay, even if he's in pain, I know that he's alive. But when he goes quiet, then we know we have a problem.
Of course.
So yes, that's how some of the experiences that I did go through.
Okay. See, I said that because, people think sometimes when you catch COVID, people need to not come close to you for fear of them catching it themselves. And it's why I thought that he had to be in that room, because some people have said that they would just drop food at the front of the door and then the person would come and get it. Did you have to do anything like that at all at any point?
I didn't think that I had to do that because he was helpless on the bed, so he could hardly get up to even come to the door. And I had to go physically into the room and attend to him. So that was my experience.
That's good, and thanks for writing about that and talking through it with me. There is something around practical approaches to overcoming daily challenges, but before we talk about that, what stood out particularly for you about the experience as you've written about in chapter 2?
Are you talking about the experience, what I was going through or what he was going through?
It's just basically what you've got in the book. So in chapter 2, you said the experience. So what were you going through as a wife, possibly a mum and an employee, because you still had to work? And for him, experiencing it physically and maybe emotionally as well. What is it about the experience that made you want to write about it in the book?
I'm glad you've mentioned chapter 2, because chapter 2 doesn't only talk about my experience, but it also documents his experience, at least what he remembers during the entire process. And for me, initially when I decided to write this book, I wasn't thinking about helping him. I thought I was helping carers because I realized that it wasn't easy to be a carer. So when I decided to document this book, I was documenting to help carers. But when the book came out, it was as though I'd written it for him. But I guess everything happens for a reason. And in my case, my experience was the struggles that I was going through, the pain, trying to combine various tasks throughout the day, even taking him for walks just to help him recover, and at the same time working from home, working full time. So there was a lot of things I had to juggle, which wasn't, part of my normal everyday activities, but I had to incorporate that into looking after somebody who was unwell, as well as, we're all on lockdown. I had my daughter who was at home, and you had their schoolwork that you had to make sure that they were also doing well. So it was trying to be everything and also maintain the peace in the house, and as well as your own sanity throughout the entire process. So for me, it was quite a difficult time, and I went through a lot, yeah.
What got you through that experience? I know you've written about approaches to overcoming it, and also you've talked about CBT here, cognitive behavioral therapy, but what was one thing that got you through the experience before we even talk about CBT and others?
Yeah, I think that when I realized that it was more of a medical problem than what I thought initially it was, I took a back stand to see how can I help resolve this solution, because the doctors were not assisting, with all due respect, but they didn't have the answers. And we were really stuck without nobody to help. And when I say nobody to help, we're not talking about, this is a situation that you need to be a bit proactive with it, otherwise you go down. At some point I thought I was drowning, but if I'm to allow myself to drown, then how am I supposed to help him? So in answering your question, I felt like if I'm to find solutions to the problem, then I'm one step ahead of the game, right? So that's why I decided to document it, because some things or some burdens started becoming a bit lighter for me as I started looking at it slightly differently, but also trying to find solutions to the problem rather than, holding on to the problem.
That's good. Did your faith in God play any role in this
It
whole
definitely
experience?
did play a role.
Talk me through it.
Like I said, I'm a Christian, and I did introduce myself as such. And faith plays a very, very key part in my Christian walk. And at that time, we had to keep pressing through. We had to keep, trusting God. And I'd seen God bring him out, because where he was at the time that, when somebody hears, COVID-19, even telling people about it, the emphasis on COVID-19 will make you panic. The media were not doing a great job making people panic. So I believe that the prayers, family support, church played a key role in even getting him out of hospital. So throughout that entire process, I realized that if God can bring him out of that severe attack, then there's definitely going to be a way out of it. And I still have to go back to the same God who brought him out and ask him to carry.
So Phil, when he was in coma in hospital, were you allowed to see him?
No, I wasn't.
Not even on camera to see what
Not
position?
at all. I had to call every day to check on him. And that was, again, another challenging moment, because you have to prep yourself, even the timing of the call, just to get the right mindset to make the call. But no. Yeah.
Did you ever worry that they weren't going to give you a good news, like you rang up and they'll tell you something else?
To be honest with you, I didn't know what to think. And I've been told that maybe I was in shock and my mind wasn't processing what was happening. But I think that was a good thing in a way. So I didn't really go into a panic mood, but I was a bit lost. And I just had to go with the moment, like call, okay, he's okay. All right, or there's never been any changes. We are still monitoring the situation. And I'll just go by that. But I wasn't thinking ahead of what could happen. The only thing that I felt like, if I get too many people with what everybody had to say, I think that would have maybe changed how I felt. But I did really cut a lot of people out during the time. Not in a negative way, but not for a lot of people to know what was happening at that time, and just key friends and family who already knew of the situation and were supporting us in prayer. So,
okay, that's beautiful to know. I know viewers are going to want to buy the book and read it, so I won't get you to talk too much, but I just want you to kind of highlight something for me in chapter 4, practical approaches to overcoming the daily challenges. What was one daily challenge, and what was a practical approach that you used to overcome that?
So one of the challenges was as if he'd become he was isolating himself even from the family. And I think he kind of knew that he wasn't himself, but he couldn't communicate that. So it was up to me to sort of create that social activities, if I should put it that way, you know, to take him out for a walk, you know, and I had to do that religiously, like, you know, take time out from work, even if it's in the afternoon for 30 minutes, you know, because I couldn't let him go on his own with a fear of knowing what may or may not happen. So I would prefer to go with him. And I did that religiously. So I believe that making time and also ensuring that he was getting those physical activities that he needed to even help with his breathing and also help with his focus was quite important. And that's some of the things that I would say at the time I did incorporate that into trying to resolve a problem. Yeah.
So if somebody has gone through a similar experience and they're looking for practical ways to overcome it, would they get that from reading this book?
I believe so, because my book documents things that I worked with. So there's nothing in the book that I haven't tested it. You know, everything that is in the book talks about what I put into practice, and I know very well that it worked. So I believe that it's going to inspire and bless people. And I've had a doctor, during the time that I did the book launch and around May, I had a doctor who, at the time, he said they didn't know what long COVID was because they hadn't really been trained about it, or they were reading a lot of things, but my book helped him to understand because this was like a real life experience that had been communicated through this book. So he kind of knew, he was excited about the book and actually bought two. But what he said was, at least I know what questions to ask my patients when they come and see me. Because when somebody comes and say long COVID, it's not something that you're resolving with a painkiller, right? So I don't even know what question next to ask. But now I can understand certain things, and he was kind of very grateful for the book. So I guess that it might not be for everybody, but depending on what you're going through, there's some things that might inspire you from the book. Yeah.
That's excellent. I'm going to ask us to take a short break and then we will come back.
Hello viewers, I would encourage you to watch the NYN Show as much as possible. It's a wonderful show. You get to find out lots of things. The human interest parts are quite encouraging and fascinating. You can't go wrong with it. Thank you.
Welcome back. So Phil, let's talk about therapy, because I noticed that you've got counseling as chapter 5.
Yes.
Without you going into too much depth about it, because we want our viewers to read the book, buy it and read it. What was happening at that point, counseling?
Okay, so I did, like I said, there were a lot of things I did to help my husband, but there came a time that I realized that the psychological aspect of what he was going through, I didn't have that expertise, skills to help him, and I felt like we needed a bit more, or we needed to go out there and seek that help. So I asked him, there are things that you cannot force on anybody. The person must be willing to want to take that approach. So I asked him, but remember that everything that I was doing, I was testing it as well. So I was like, okay, now we're going to try this, and I'll document it to see what the outcome was going to be. So he felt that he was struggling and he needed to speak to someone. So it was good that he agreed. And I can say that it did make a difference. For that period, what we're going through, it did make a lot of difference, yes.
That's good. We do hear things like men don't like counseling, they don't like going to see a shrink and all of that, but or a shrine. But it did work. But I just wondered, did you ever consider counseling for yourself?
I've always thought that I need that, and I'm sure that one day I'll want to do that. But at the time, I felt like the immediate, the priority was with him. So that's what we focused on. But bear in mind that what I was going through, as he was recovering, I was in a way also getting better. So it was sort of a win-win situation for both of us.
That's good. So where are we at now? Because you've got in here somewhere the journey so far. What's the latest? Where is he? Is he better? What's happening right now?
I would say he's much, much better. Obviously, there are lots more that we believe that he would finally get to where he was before. But compared to when he came from hospital, and it's been about 18 months or so since then, and he's much better. He's working, he's responding, he's talking, he's doing everything. But we still believe that, he'll get to his full recovery to where he wants to be as a person as well.
And bedroom action is functioning as
he's
before.
Lovely.
I can see you wearing a straight face going, he's lovely. All right, that's good to know. Why should people get this book?
I believe that this book is a blessing. In hindsight, about 11 months ago, I decided to write this book. And I always say that I don't know how far or what situation I'll be in had I not written it. Because this book motivated me to help him more. And I know people say, oh, but he's your husband, you have to. Yes, but we are also human beings. So if you're passionate about something and you want to make something work, then you find practical ways to make it work. And I believe that this book has documented those practical ways. So even if you're not buying it for yourself, you can buy it to bless someone. And it's not just about COVID, because I know I documented my experience as COVID, but this book is here to bless anybody who is going through any challenges that perhaps, even whether you're a carer or you are the one who is going through the ailment and you need somebody to, assist you. I believe that this book is just saying that do not suffer in silence. There are people here to help, and getting a good support group around you is very, very important. And I believe that during this time of pandemic, we found that there are a lot of people who have been quite lonely, but there is help out there and you just need to ask.
That's beautiful. So, have you had any feedback from anybody who has bought the book, who has read the book?
I've had lots of feedback. Simple to read. I couldn't stop. Intriguing. I just wanted to finish it. Thank you for sharing your story. We've been very, very inspired. We've learned something new. So I'm just glad that I wrote it because I haven't written a book before, right? So somebody even said, oh, did you go to a book writing school? No, I didn't. But I believe that God wanted me to write, and that's why I'm getting those positive responses out of it. Yeah.
That's excellent. And in flipping through the book, it's just so simple. Only 7 chapters, and it looks quite light. So I'm quite curious about everything that's in there, and I can't wait to read it. So I know this is your first book, so you're a first-time author. Can we expect a second book at some point, or even a third? Tell me.
I believe that I have a God-given talent to inspire. And as I discover that, I'm sure I'll be happy to write a second book, but we'll see.
Watch this space. Hallelujah. So if somebody wants to get a copy of this, how would they get one?
At the moment, it's on sale in Amazon. You can get it in Kindle, and also you can get the hard copy. It's for £7, I think, in Kindle, and the hard copy is £10. So you can, or if you want a signed copy, you can contact me directly through Nanaya.
Okay, thank you. So Phil, what have you got to say to women like you who are facing various challenges of a kind? It may not be exactly like yours, but other challenges. What have you got to say to them?
Keep their faith. Keep their faith. Ask for help. Don't suffer in silence. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So this is it really. Are there any final words you want to say to our viewers before we thank you for coming on the show?
Thank you for inviting me into your homes, and God bless you.
All right, so we wish you the very, very best with this book and everything else you've got coming up in the future. And do give our love to your husband. And we hope that he continues to make full recovery, and may God continue to bless your family and your home.
Thank you.
So thank you all for watching the story. If you've been inspired by Phyllis's story and you want to share your story, by all means, please contact us. We've got the details, access details on the screen, and we look forward to catching up with you at some point soon. Take care. God bless. Bye.
Bye.